open the Architectural Board of Review, a meeting for February 6th. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. I'll go ahead and take roll call. Chair Moore is absent today. Vice Chair Six.
Here.
Board Member Anderson.
Here.
Board Member Black.
Here.
Board Member Noon.
Here.
And Board Member Whalen.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will move on to the approval of the minutes for the Architectural Board of Review meeting for January 30th.
We need to open a public comment first.
Oh, excuse me, beep. Is there anybody here to speak on an item that is not on today's agenda? Do we have any?
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. I don't have any speaker slips for today for not on the agenda. Currently, we do not have any virtual participants. We did receive written correspondence from Sheila Lodge, which was distributed to the board prior to the meeting. So back to you.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to now the minutes for the Architectural Board of Review meeting for January 30th.
I move we accept the minutes as is.
All righty, do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second.
No, he'll second.
Wheeler, second. So we have a motion on the floor?
I'll go ahead and take a roll call vote. Vice Chair Six.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
Board Member Black.
Yes.
Board Member Noon.
Yes.
And Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, so we will move on to consent calendar for January 30th. First of all, approval of those minutes.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. We had item A, 518 East Haley Street, and that received project design and final approval with the following comments. And it was regarding a licensed arborist report for the pruning of a tree. So that was the only item.
All right, do I have a maker
I'll
of
motion to approve those.
Second.
Board Member Whelan and Board Member Black second? We have a motion on the floor.
And I'll go ahead and take a roll call vote. Vice Chair Six.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
Board Member Black.
Yes.
Board Member Noon.
Yes.
And Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, then February 6th minutes consent. Do you want to review those first?
Well, it was just me, and it was 2 hours ago, and I made the motion, seconded, and voted for approval on them, so I will so move now.
All right, very good. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
I have a seconder?
And what's up on the screen is the address and the outcome of.
Looks pretty simple. Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
And I'll take the roll call vote. Thank you. Vice Chair Six.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
Board Member Black.
Yes.
Board Member Noon.
Yes.
And Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All righty, so we will move on to announcements, either by board members or staff.
Staff has no announcements at this time.
All righty. Any subcommittee reports? No. All right. So with that being the end of general business, we will move on to our first item of the day. We're within 15 minutes of it, so we can start, correct? Okay. So this is 219 East Haley. And as I read it, you might want to come up and settle in. This project received project design approval from ABR in January 2020. The project has been revised to a larger building of 25,000 some odd square feet versus 26,800 square feet, with an average unit size of 741 square feet versus 725 square feet. And the building is proposed to be 48. My dyslexia is there. 48 feet tall versus 45 feet tall. Project also added private rooftop decks and access to townhouse units, fenestrations, and floor plans. The proposal is for a new mixed-use development using the average unit density Unit size density program. The proposal includes the demolition of 7 existing structures housing 8 residential units and the construction of a 4-story, 34-unit mixed-use development. Unit mix will include 1 3-bedroom, 13 2-bedroom, and 19 1-bedroom units, and 1 studio ranging in size from 408 to 1,062 square feet with an average unit size of 741 square feet. Also proposed are 2 commercial spaces totaling 1,586 square feet. The proposal density on this 23,974 square foot parcel will be 61.8 dwelling units per acre on a parcel with a general plan use designation of commercial, industrial / medium high residential of 37 to 63 dwelling units per acre in the priority housing overlay. There will be 36 covered parking spaces for the residential units and 3 covered parking spaces for the commercial area. Project requires a development plan approval finding for a small non-residential addition as defined in section 30.170.020 of the municipal code. At this point, the final approval is requested. Project requires compliance with the plans granted project design approval on April 18th, 2022. Whew. Okay, with that, if you would introduce yourselves and go through the project primarily on things that have changed or are the same from the preliminary design approval.
Very good. Vice Chair 6 and fellow board members, Ed Devasene, DMHA Architecture.
Michael Stroh, DMHA Architecture.
Kim True, True Nature Landscape Architecture.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Board Member 6, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can we see the previous comments?
Yes.
Do we have those?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Noonan. Okay, everybody reviewed those? All right. So with that,
Excellent. Since you've last seen us, we've been busy really just turning this into a completed design. So we're here for final today. We've submitted to the building department a couple of months ago. We're awaiting comments probably this week. And so this is great timing to get your input on the final package. So we're not going to directly address the minutes item by item. We're just going to take you through kind of the project where it stands and address those 3 comments along the way. I've got Mike here to cover those throughout the presentation, and yeah, should be pretty straightforward, but we've got a full package, so we'll get right into it.
Thank you. Ed, so we've developed our full construction documents package and submitted to the building department. So we have all of the typical things that you would find, our cover sheet, photos, accessibility details, Cal Green, things like that. But Ed, if you could move to page 18, which is the site plan, I'd like to cover that. Specifically, so if you could move to the front, and zoom in on the front. So the first thing that we have done is the transformer previously had a fence around it that was not the board would have preferred landscape screening. So we've removed the fence entirely. We've worked with Kim and we've worked with Edison to develop a planting plan for that area, which Kim will show you once we're done with the architectural portion of the presentation. The other thing that's happened is that the bioplanter that's at the other side has been reduced about 40%, which is in addition to the reductions that were made previously. And the reason we were able to do that, one, it opens up the street frontage a whole lot better. But the reason we were able to do that is on the other end of the property, there's a small little wedge-shaped piece of property that nobody really owns. And so we ended up doing a quitclaim on that, and we're able to incorporate that as part of our bioplanter system. And then, so Ed, if you could go to the overall floor plans 47. Nope, almost. Computer's going to win. So, zoom out. So we have the garage at the ground floor. We still have the same 2 commercial spaces. Nothing's really changed at all. We have the various ancillary uses, bike storage, and electrical room, and elevator, and trash, things like that. The unit layer, the units above on the second level, if you could go up, still we have the very orthogonal arrangement along the portion of Haley Street, the eastern portion of Haley Street, the eastern facade and the rear, and then we have the sawtooth jagged townhome units along that western side. That hasn't changed from what you've seen before. So if you go to the next sheet. So third floor hasn't changed at all, but it's a full plate of units. We did modify the stairs up to the roof decks a little bit, just kind of reworked those a tiny bit, just so that they're a little bit more fitting with the architecture. If you could go to the fourth floor. So this hasn't really changed except for the flex space. This was brought up the last time as something that needed to be articulated better and something that needed to be potentially reduced or modified. And so what we've done is we've actually, we discussed this with the owners, we discussed potentially relocating it, we've discussed a few different things. And our conclusion was, with the owners, was that the flex space is really important to the project in terms of the overall value of the project, and the fourth floor is a selling point. But what we looked at then is, okay, so how do we better address that? And so what we did is we actually worked on the fenestration, which I'll show you in a minute, and sort of gave it a little bit more punch to it. And then we actually, where it's pulled back from that eastern facade and from those 3 units that are sitting there, we actually added an aluminum trellis that matches the aluminum trellis that we put on Haley Street. And again, from the perspective of where this is, it's not very easily seen, and we could show you that in a minute when we get to the axos. But if you could go to the overall elevations, can you go to 68, Ed? I'm cognizant of time. I want to make sure we have enough time to cover the landscaping. So one of the discussions, there actually was some disagreement amongst the board about the faux chimney elements that were on the elevator tower. What we ended up doing, you can actually see, is we ended up just clipping it to the minimum amount possible. And the reason is actually, if you go to the other long elevation, I think it's down at the bottom. There's a series of massings that are sort of cantilevered and broken from the other pieces that front Haley, and it actually worked out so that you actually get these sort of 3 levels of massing with these 3 very, very simple, clean, minimum parapets. And so that's what we decided to do in terms of cleaning it up, and it makes it about 24 inches shorter as well, which is a good thing. So the other thing that we did, you can actually, if you stay on this facade, is we looked at the parapets of the townhomes. One of the discussions was they were fairly ordinary and pretty straight across the last time. They didn't have any articulation to them. So we've actually added a 3-step parapet that'll be bumped out, and then where they're lower, they actually have little railings on them where we have the roof decks. And then we've given those heights, they have multiple heights now, so that they kind of bump up at the middle and then taper down towards the edges. And then if you want to go to, can you go to the other long elevation? I want to talk about, and we looked at window sizing and things on the various facades, in particular the Haley Street elevation. But we developed sort of a pattern language of kind of these white elements versus these taupe elements, which is sort of a more contemporary horizontal balcony that's just a simple, clean little tiny projection, plaster projection with a green awning on the more contemporary pieces. And then when you go to the townhouse pieces, which are the taupe color, We get a three-step awning to kind of match the parapet. It sticks out further. It's much more of a balcony. And we go to a vertical, not fenestration, but a vertical balcony members. And then we go to a linen-colored awning. And so we just establish those color palettes, just kind of working off of each other. And you can actually see here the big trellis that sits over the flex space now, which further pushes that back, puts that in shadow, and further limits that in terms of kind of being an abrupt piece of massing. Beyond that, I mean, we've done our sections and wall sections and things like that, but if you want to go to 104, Ed, we have all of our doors and window details. We have pushed everything as far back as the interior finishes to get better, shadowing and punches into those openings. If you go to the next sheet, we've got, including where we have double walls, we've pushed everything as far back as possible, again, just for shade and shadow. And then if you go to 108, we've developed three-dimensional details, so you can start to see, again, this difference between this sort of tiny little Juliet balcony, which is the more contemporary styled horizontal style, versus the vertical style with tile and the three-stepped balcony for the more traditional piece. The next sheet has, and then that's the upper parapet where we've dropped. So these are our typical trellises. They're aluminum, and they just get smaller as you go up, as far as how everything kind of goes together. So they're really simple and clean. We do have the awnings on the building of multiple colors. We are proposing to use aluminum sheeting over canvas. The canvas just has a maintenance issue and looks really great for about a week, and then. So we are proposing to use aluminum for those. And then keep going if you would. So we have our additional details, all of our wall and parapet details, things like that. Keep going if you would. Stair details, various things. And then if you would go to 114, it's for all of our entry doors, clean and simple. The third fixture down is for all of our exterior patios and rear public areas. And then the fourth fixture down is for our commercial spaces, again, smaller and clean. And then the fifth fixture down is just for any ancillary use where we have like, we just don't have enough light near a stair or between units or things like that. All of our doors and windows are proposed to be fiberglass and a dark bronze finish. And then our storefronts are also proposed to be a dark bronze finish. We're going to use Arcadia. At the base of the building, we do have cast-in-place concrete. We have smooth sections, and we have board form. The bronze paint color below that is for all of the exposed metals, such as gutters, downspouts, things like that. We have our two colors, the mescaline green and the natural linen for the awnings. The glass bead color is actually for the prefabricated awnings, which you can actually see at the bottom of the image here. And then we have two stucco colors. We have the La Habra Suffolk, which is that taupey color, and then La Habra Pure Ivory, which is just a white. And then if you go down just a little bit more, the stain on the Resista is just a dark taupe as well, and then any of the roofing would be white. So, and with that, I want to turn it over to Kim True for her portion of the presentation.
Thank you. So, to our, nothing's changed on the demolition plan, so everything on site's leaving. Our layout plan, we've brought in permeable pavers, tan color pass-through pavers along the front to address stormwater. And I'd like to note that there's a stormwater chamber that was added by creeks in the upper right-hand corner of the parkway there. So that's our treatment of the frontage. Next, please. Probably go up to our, this is our material color. So for the pavers would be the same color as that Davis color, so we'd be matching that that's out on the street frontage, and then using a sand cast concrete on the podium level with the tan color there. And then the faux fountains would be the planters, but we'd have the same tile. And then the glazed pots that are around the podium level and up onto the upper levels. And I think we're same, let's scroll down, please, Ed, so we can see where the pavers are. The big introduction here to the back fountain, we brought in an artificial turf area that can be used for pets, or just bring in some greenery at the podium level there. Antimicrobial sand, and there's water available there for hosing it down by maintenance as needed. Next sheet. So our upper levels, same treatment, so it's all continuous, and the pots next. Irrigation plan, so we have property there, so when that is being utilized for stormwater, irrigation cycles will not run on that. Next. And more irrigation next, just doing all drip, automatic controllers, and next. And here's our big sheets. So we have the planting around the front there that we've brought in, around the transformer, so that's all landscaped there. We did lose the street tree, but we're retaining the street tree to the south there. We took Mr. Black's suggestion and we brought the tree in along the north, the upper, to the top there on the east side. So using that instead of the palms for our vertical element there. And then the other big move is to the back of the property where we have the stormwater, we have the cordyline there, and some mixed lamandras and carex, blue carex back in there for the stormwater treatment. So it gives us some vertical and some green, that mostly be seen by residents looking down. Next. And this is our plant palette, and the podium level planting has stayed very similar, except we lost the stormwater planters that were on the podium since it all went to the back. And so all of the planting is now ornamental, so more succulents have been brought in. Canopy trees, the olives there, and then on the other side, we have the two palo verdes as well. And so those were the big substantive changes since you've seen it last to landscape. We have a lighting plan, which would be the next one. Next, water conservation. So very simple fixture that's up at the top there. Yeah, very simple fixture at the top there, and some downlighting, or not downlighting, but tuck under lighting that you'll see right there. Just to highlight some of the planters and the fountains. So those little strip lights would be on the fountains illuminating that, which are planter fountains. And then very simple path lights just to illuminate some of the plantings in the planters along the way. So to highlight the different colors of the succulents. And that concludes landscape.
Excellent, thank you, Kim. So there's probably another 200 sheets, but we'll leave it
go
to the
through
board's
each and every one.
discretion. We're here to answer any questions you might have. Feel free to flip through the other sheets. We have a full package here, as you've seen. So yeah, happy to have the project to this point. And yeah, hopefully we are at the point where you can agree we're ready for final approval. So thank you,
Great.
Chair.
Thank you for that presentation. And with that, I will open public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. Currently, we do not have any virtual participants. I did not receive any speaker slips for this item, and we did not receive written correspondence, so back to you.
That being so, we will close public comment and bring it back to questions to the board.
Yes, Vice Chair Six, just one small question. The staff report indicates that the project grew by about 1,600 square feet. Can you tell us where that landed? It didn't get any taller, right?
Chair Six and Board Member Whalen, can I just, I'm Kelly Broadison. I'm an associate planner with Community Development. I'm assigned to this project. What, may I ask what you're referring to when you say staff report?
The first sentence of the staff report is the project has been revised to a larger building from 25,000 to 26,000, resulting in 1,600 additional square feet.
Are you talking about the agenda? Oh, okay.
The staff report?
That's an.
Sorry.
Okay. So yes, we clarified that with the applicant, so I'll let them go ahead and explain that.
Sure, Vice Chair 6, Board Member Whalen.
Whalen.
Yes, there's a lot of board members. I think some of the stats here were from PDA and the change from the 2 PDAs, but we can certainly take a peek at, there's a couple of adjustments, so it's a good topic here. So actually, our average unit size went down to 726. I think last time you saw us, we were 741. And so again, this is just as we fine-tune design. And then the project description last time was at 25,224. Now the residential portion is close to that if you include the accessory, so 24,691 plus. So it's about 25,500 or so. So it's a little bit bigger than what you saw, a couple hundred square feet. So it's pretty close to the same. The larger change of the height and the more massaging was between the 2 previous PDAs, but the changes to this, what you have today, is much more minimal.
So if I understand you correctly, you didn't really add 2 more 741 square foot units, that somehow the staff report is not correct and it's comparing apples to apples.
Correct. I think it's not referencing the current design. It was from the PDA that was presented last time.
All right, I won't belabor it, but thank you.
Those are your questions? Mr. New?
Yes, quickly, could you go to just a podium level? The question is in reference to the turf area and how that's being used. I think you maybe mentioned for pets.
Yes, that was an ownership request.
And is that like a relief area? Pet relief area?
They probably will use it as such.
And is
Yeah,
there,
and-
is it just going to capture?
So I have a permeable subgrade built into this and with the antimicrobial sand, so it would filter down. And I do have a construction detail if you'd like to see that, but I have it draining down to drains, and then could be flushed out with water. So the idea is it wouldn't sit there, it could filter down through the,
And then that tub, if you will, has a drain?
yes,
Okay.
correct.
Okay. That's my question.
Thank you, Mr. Noon. Mr. Black?
Kim, could you remind me of the species of trees that you have along the property line on either side?
So those are the olives.
There.
Yeah,
Well,
and then we
speak into
had,
the microphone.
Mr. Black, sorry, thank you.
yes, so the Palo Verde
Okay,
in the front there.
and there too?
Desert Museum, same there, correct. And then the Stenocarpus sinuatus was the street tree, and that's what we brought in at ground level.
And you think the Palo Verde is going to get the kind of height that you want against a 4-story building? Just a
We're gonna-
question.
yeah. Yeah, since we're up on the second level, I think the Desert Museum will get a little bit taller there.
Okay.
So I think we're at a good shade level there.
And could you describe the planting scheme around the transformer? Because you made some reference to that.
It's the Senecio and the Crassula capitella, which is the red goes to green when it's cool out, and bright red in the summer.
So it's all just ground cover
And,
essentially?
well, we have the clearance areas for the transformer, unfortunately.
understand.
Yeah, so I have some chondropetalum there, so it's the upright where I can. And then the bougainvillea is still on the building there, so it would grow up the corner.
Got it, I get it. And then, thank you. Then unrelated to landscape, So the finishes for the aluminum trellis that you described, what does that look like? I mean,
They're painted the dark bronze, so
Okay, so it's the
we do a
bronze.
pre-finished dark bronze, like a
okay.
Kynar.
And then could you describe, do you have a detail for, there's the entrance to the parking garage is gated, yes? And do we have a detail of what that gate would look like?
It's on 802, which is page 117. So we've gone round and round on a couple of these projects about these, and so we've chosen the one that is least regular. So this has a sort of a running bond brick pattern to it.
Okay.
It's the best one we've found so far.
And it's a roll-up, I'm assuming.
It is a roll-up, yes.
Yeah, and the finish on that is,
It'll be the bronze, yes.
got it. And then how much is the gate recessed from,
If you go to 47, or,
See it right there.
oh, nope, 40, there we go. It's quite a ways back, you can see.
Oh, I
It's-
see.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
So,
and there won't be any, I've noticed a couple projects in town that didn't address this, but there won't be any exposed utilities, pipes,
no,
boxes, anything?
everything comes in, and we've got utility rooms in the back, so that so you're not looking at panels, and you're not looking at irrigation controllers and all kinds of.
And nothing on the ceiling?
No.
Okay.
You will have backflow preventers, but there's not much more we can do about that,
Okay.
so.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Beck. Ms. Anders?
Yes, a couple questions. One, do you have a detail on the wall detail where the plaster hits the board form concrete? I'm just curious how you are detailing that.
Let's see, you're gonna wanna go to, let's take a look at, start with 108. I'm not sure exactly where it would be. I'm sure we do though. Not this sheet. Keep going. Keep going. Let's see here. Thought we did. Not on this sheet, keep going.
Is the plaster in line with the concrete, or is it proud?
No, it has to be proud because they're doing shotcrete, and then they'll
Okay.
do the podium, and then they'll do the wall, and so the plaster will be proud, and it'll have a weave screed.
Okay,
So-
okay, got it.
I still don't see the detail.
That's okay, we can
Somewhere, so-
move on. If you can go to the material board, the light fixture, the middle light fixture, can you tell me again where that is?
Yeah, so that's with the heavy seated glass. Yeah, so typically on all of our rear patios, you would see those down the edges. So they're sort of, so if you think about it, sort of the drum shape is at the doors, kind of at the interior, and then the heavy seated glass fixtures are along
On
the
the
patio
outside.
doors
I
along
see,
the
I
outside.
see. And then what is your lighting strategy on the entry stairs? Are you doing step lights? Or do you have lighting?
No, there's some sconces shown on our plans that actually, they match actually what we have at the door. So just the little drum-shaped downlight. So, yeah, we haven't done, step lights are, they're great, but they're complicated to
Sure.
install.
Yeah.
And so from a cost perspective, it made more sense to use
Okay.
sconces.
And then you have lighting at the garage entry in the ceiling? Or do you have anything there?
Yes. So let's see, you're going to want to go to, oh geez, around 44, somewhere in there. Nope. Sorry. I lied. Try again. Yeah, electrical, so it'd be all the way at the end.
Are they recessed or flush? or-
I believe they're recessed. I don't remember. Are they surface mount? Okay. He knows better.
Mucho drawings here, where we can find it.
There you go.
I see, okay. Yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah, so these are the PGE 457s.
Okay, thank
And
you.
let's see.
And then just to keep you moving around here, do you have any details of the man door entry gate at the top of the stairs? Or are you still doing that?
Oh, we do, actually. It's, I have to think about what sheet that's on.
Probably in the enlarged plans with the stairs.
Yeah, I think so.
See if I'm going to go in the right direction.
It's an aluminum gate, and it's just painted dark bronze.
Okay.
And then it's got a perf metal screen so that nobody can reach through and grab the,
And does that pattern kind of match the garage door pattern, or is it something a little different?
it's just a perf panel. I don't think we've actually chosen the panel yet.
Okay.
We'll choose something that somebody can't get their fingers through.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Ah, okay.
T001. You can find it if you like.
That's okay.
it is in there.
That's good. And, what was my last question? Oh, do you have a view, maybe it's in your 3D views. Can you see that bioretention from Santa Barbara if you were walking south? Or like, can you see the back of the building there?
Oh, go to the
can't see
Axos.
it.
It would be
Okay.
on 114. No, you shouldn't be able to see that. It's,
The parking lot from behind Ashley and Vance's office is probably the only place you'll see it.
Yeah, okay. That was my question, yeah.
Right, and it's
Okay.
about a 4-foot drop from the
Okay.
parking lot down to this landscape area.
Okay, cool. I think those were my questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson. So, my questions are, let's bear with it here. My only planting question, landscape question is it's great, this quick claim, extra strip in the back. David, or landscape architect, did we get the most vertical planting that we possibly could there to complement the massing?
Remind me, Kim, what you have back there?
I have the cordyline, the vertical cordylines back there, since we have a very shallow planting media because of the stormwater with the gravel down below, and didn't want to get anything with very vigorous woody roots down then in there. So that's why I went with the cordyline that would get more vertical. It's the one that's green and white, variegated.
Variegated.
And it gets the multiple heads, and it's a larger, probably 25, 30 foot.
Really, you think it'll get that tall?
I've seen those ones get tall. I had one similar cultivar get, in about 4 years to the height of my house in Goleta. So what's that, 20? So,
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, that would do the job then.
Okay, very good. So let's first start with the front elevation, south, on the big scale elevation.
go to 68.
A lot of these are more general, so first of all, the aluminum trellis, there's no end caps?
No, there are actually, I noticed that about 2 weeks ago in our details. We'll have end caps.
So
I
end
promise.
caps, okay. And at one point, I think in the material board, it says the concrete will be a smooth gray form board. I thought we were going for the texture of the wood to give a,
Yeah, Ed, if you can go to the long elevation along the eastern side, which I think is that one.
what does a smooth mean in that
So,
description?
it's essentially just a shot in, because it's shotcrete, it'll be just shot in place with a smooth form. It won't have, but if you look along that side, what we've done is we've actually recessed the board formed portions, and then the portions that are essentially right up against the property line, we're just pouring smooth with the little niches in them.
My question is interested in getting as heavy a texture to the board itself, to the form itself. And when I see smooth form board,
That's a
contrary.
nomenclature thing. No, the board form, we'll use a form liner that actually gives the grain and gives the differentiation between the.
So we'll see that.
You will, yes, you
that
will absolutely.
woodiness to
Yes,
it. Okay.
yes. Yeah, but the other portions that are pushed up against the property line, we're intending to just shoot with normal, 150 PSF aggregate, shotcrete, but it'll be just a smooth finish, so.
Great. I didn't see the double check valve.
It would be in civil.
It is in the building.
It's inside the building? If that's the case, then we don't need to belabor it, all right?
Yes, the backflows and the double detector check assembly they're in this area
They're in that
here.
hallway, aren't they?
In this,
Yeah.
yeah, in this back hallway.
Okay. On the, and David, Mr. Black alluded to it, the garage mouth. If, we don't need to go there, but P 101.01 and P 3.01 do show plumbing going across the bottom of that. And I'm wondering if we could soffit down and cover that, and we'll have sprinklers. Could we soffit from that front header back to where the garage door header is to clean that area up? And
It actually, as I recall, it actually is.
no,
It-
plaster soffit? A
Yeah.
dropped plaster soffit, I didn't see one.
Should be. Because because the door itself, we wanted the header height to be equal to the door, and the door is only 9 feet, but our bottom of structure is at,
Right.
11'4" or whatever it is.
But I
So-
didn't see any place where there was a plaster drop soffit between those two headers.
Okay.
Am I not correct?
Trying to see if we have one right through the middle.
I don't know if we do or
I
not.
don't think you have a section that large, but,
We're close.
and the larger sections, both number 2 to the left is, see, there's no, yeah, that one.
No, I hate to say that, it's inferred that there is one by the fact that we are showing a 9-foot,
It's
9-foot header.
here, mhm.
So there should be a soffit there.
This is the wall section here, Vice Chair 6. So at
Okay.
the entry, we have it comes down to 9 feet, and then that will help shield any of the piping
But
at the underside.
can
of
we
the
have a
pavilion.
drop soffit finished ceiling to cover up and have the pipes above from that structural header back to the structural header that the garage door is mounted on? A finished ceiling.
I would think so, yeah. It seems like there's plenty of room to bring that in.
Okay.
If that's important for the board.
Yes, it is. So I'm still a little lost on the light fixtures. If we could go to your types. I love the seated glass one. I think that's very,
116.
but the cleaner, where, in the front, you said the commercial?
Commercial is
Portion-
the fourth one down, the thinner barrels
Mhm.
come down.
Would you be amenable to a more decorative old style one, such as the one above it for the very front? I'm trying to, I think that there's been many separate times where we didn't want this building to look totally contemporary. We wanted a bit more Pueblo or whatever it was. And, I'm nitpicking here to get back some of that richness and that feeling. So can we do that? Pick another fixture for the front exteriors.
I think we can pick another fixture.
Okay.
Yes.
And the Resista balcony material, does that have a rich wood texture to it, or is?
Yeah, actually, it's pretty grainy. We actually used it, there's a project up at Mitchell Terena and Olive Street. It's a medical office building that's 3 or 4 stories tall, and we used it in a horizontal banding around the building. And it went through design review and everything else, but it looks really good.
So
And it's been there about, well, I don't even know, it's been there about, 8 or 9 years now, and it still looks brand new.
And looks more woodish than
Yes.
plastic, for a better word.
No, they've improved it a lot. It doesn't look cheap. It's got a good grit to it.
Okay. I thought if we could go to 3A705.
It's going to be around 110.
Did we not, and I get mixed up on my projects, did we not request that on these trellises, the posts would be moved back from the very top of the wall? Push it back a little bit? We did.
I don't recall.
Okay.
Either.
Would you be, I think it would look better,
It's better from a waterproofing standpoint. So,
waterproofing to push it back?
no, it's better from a waterproofing
On
standpoint
top.
to move it to move it back.
Yeah.
I
If
think
you.
I think we can accommodate that.
Yes,
No problem.
I think it would help that balcony line, the horizontal balcony line. Your stair tread and material, I couldn't find, especially at the entry stair, there was
The primary entry stair is concrete.
bare concrete, yes, okay.
And then the remainder of the stairs are, I don't remember what we have on there. Go to,
That's what,
seven-
most of those are interior, right?
yeah, there are a couple of exterior, but I believe they're precast.
So the front stair, which.
The front stair is concrete, yes. So,
Let's go to the west elevation, large scale.
68. We have those at a larger.
I'm sorry, the partials, the really, the big ones.
Oh, okay, so just go to, yeah, the ones with all the notes. Yeah, there you go.
That's
It's split, that's the west.
okay, that's the west. So the west, these recycle chutes sticking above the building, how proud are those? And do they have to have clearance? Can they not be behind a parapet?
They do require clearance. We cleaned these up as much as possible to minimize their impacts.
So you'll be painting them out, or
Yeah. they'll be
there's no other way to handle them?
Not particularly because they have to vent. And so it's, there's not much we can really do about it.
So they have to stand this proud of the parapet?
You do.
Okay.
Yes.
So if we look at the left hand, the rear west elevation, yeah, and we glimpse into the courtyard, why do we have one more arched opening? Is that just to tease everyone?
Let's take a closer look at the interior elevation, court elevations. We do have the full,
So if you look at, yeah.
There's
so-
more.
Right, so this is within the
Oh, okay.
Paseo.
So you do, okay.
Yeah.
Now
we
it
di-
makes
We didn't
sense.
just leave one, we promise.
No. Okay, I get it now. I get it.
We even have bougainvillea spilling out of a few of them.
Okay. Okay. That's a comment. Okay, so if we go to the east elevation, the large ones,
You're going to want to go to the down to
Down.
the next, the bigger ones.
Oh, the larger ones, sure. Those larger ones.
One more. There you go. Yeah.
yeah, there you go. So if you pan over so we can see the right-hand side of that, it just seems, up.
On this, the upper?
Yeah, right there, bingo.
Sure.
On the third floor, we've got, it looks like 3 different types of balcony fascias, and I'm confused on that, and it doesn't look quite resolved.
That is a drafting error.
There's supposed to be 2, correct?
There's supposed to only be 2, yeah.
So the 2 middle ones are the correct ones.
The two middle ones are correct. The one to the right should be the traditional, and the one all the way to the left is correct, except it's too fat on the bottom. That's not what we're doing.
Okay,
So, yeah, it's correct on the overalls. It's just not correct here for some reason.
and then if we zoom out and go to number 1 down below, the preliminaries had a few more balconies in those midsection windows. Do we eliminate them? Like, starting from the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth column of windows all had balconies.
Sure, Chair Six, this was, this is the same as you saw for PDA. We
Okay.
had, that was part of the square footage growth, as you saw in the, from PDA to PDA, so what you saw in April. So this is, what you see today is consistent with what we had in April. We haven't grown those. That was done the last
So
time
you
you
didn't strip
approved it.
any off,
No.
balconies off? Okay. Okay, if we move over to, or go back up again, yeah, on the far left, we have between, at the podium level, at the mass of the very far left, we have, right where you're, just right there, your hand, those lines going down and over and up are not, the sections show that at all a flat plane. What's happening
It's just the
there?
plaster. The plaster comes down, and as we talked about before, so you've got a concrete wall that comes up.
Oh,
And so it's just the plaster.
smooth concrete. and
Yes.
Just the plaster, so you need a separation.
Yes.
Okay, I get it. So it'll be very subtle.
It's super subtle, yeah. It's not a recess or a projection or anything. It's an inch of plaster.
So I guess on the same thread as the arched window, when we glimpse into the east there, into the courtyard, right above your hand, those look like solid balcony and stair railings, and I thought the preliminaries had very textured, okay, so you changed it a little. So over there, it's solid.
The entry projection, yes, when you come in through the first, up the stair through the first 2 masses, and then when you come in, yeah, we did go with a solid massing for the stairs and for the third level balconies. And then the bridge that goes across in the middle there is when it changes into the resista.
Resista,
Yes.
Okay, thank you for your patience. I think that's the end of my questions.
I have a follow-up question.
Yes, go ahead.
On the front elevation, is that the signage you're proposing where it says commercial and Or is that just
It's just
indicate?
it's a placeholder. I
Yeah,
mean, that's
okay.
the indication of the signage. Obviously, any signs would come in for permit and review.
Yeah, different.
So,
Just confirming. Okay, that's fine.
Okay,
Follow-up
comments?
question, Mr. Vice Chair.
Follow-up, okay.
Yes, regarding the partial resolution that quit came, that created the planting bed on the north, is that accessible, or is the idea that you just plant it and it takes care of itself?
There is a door from the garage out there at the very small patio, so it is accessible.
All right. And you're happy with your plant selections? It seems to me it'll be in total shade.
Yes, I considered that, yes.
All right, thank you, that's all.
All right. If that's the end of questions, we'll go to comments. Mr. Whalen?
No comments, thank you.
Okay,
No comments.
no comments?
No comments except to say that I think it's a handsome project, so I think it's certainly ready for final.
All right, very good. Ms. Anderson?
Sure. I think that the railing and parapet along the west elevation, I think that was successful. I think the trellis at the flex space is successful. And I would actually disagree with Vice Chair 6 about the lighting. I prefer the more modern lights, so that's kind of that's my 2 cents. Yeah, and I would say just be consistent with the balcony details and, yeah, those are my comments.
Okay, I think this is exceptionally well thought out and detailed, and thank you for all your time you spend with us here, going back and forth, and I think it's led, to your credit, to a fine project, so I really like it. And there's a few still things that are still bothering me. It's like this tendency to get it more modern than I think a lot of the previous comments were about. So and I think if we go to the west elevation right hand, I think you should add back these parapet corner undulations that we have throughout. I think it would be important. I realize you're excited about the 3 different shapes stepping up from the corner to the top, but I think that it's more important to continue that language of those shaped corner parapets. And that would go also on the stair tower and on the small private stair on the 4th floor, just directly to the left of it. Do we want to take a vote on that? Anybody else feel strongly about that? Should I be?
I mean, I disagree with your comments.
Yes, I understand. Let's vote. Okay, so let's, who would like to see the additional corner shaped parapets on the tower and on both stair towers in the east, in the west right-hand elevation? You would like to see?
Yeah,
I would like to
I think
see.
it's a plus.
And who doesn't? No.
Vice Chair 6, can we just do a straw vote on that?
Oh,
and
yeah,
let-
okay.
I'll go ahead and take straw vote. Roll call. Vice Chair 6.
I would like to see them.
Board Member Anderson.
No.
Board Member Black.
I'd say yes.
Board Member Noon.
No?
And Board Member Whalen.
No.
3 noes. Thank you.
Okay. And then the other comment that you can take or leave, I think that it would be, I really like the addition and the difference it gives the forms of the molding that parapet molding that you've taken on your beige elements. But I think it's a little too fat and heavy, and it could be lightened up and extended out a little bit. It would be much more elegant. So you might want to look at that. That's only a suggestion. Do we need to do a straw vote on the light fixtures for the front of the building? Let's do that. Who would be in favor of having a light fixture that's more rustic and similar to the sconces on the sides for the commercial front of the building?
I'll take the roll call vote for the straw vote. Vice Chair Six,
More rustic.
Board Member Anderson,
No.
Board Member Black,
So yes.
Board Member Noon,
No?
and Board Member Whalen.
No.
The noes have it. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, would anybody want to make a motion?
I think you have all the comments that you want to incorporate, so maybe you want to make it.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, good.
And we'll see if this passes. But I actually move that you come back to the consent calendar or the consent calendar or board with the following comments: consistent balcony details. Add the end caps to the aluminum trellis on the front commercial spaces. And study, or not study, pull back the balcony trellis structure.
Ms. Anderson, maybe that we could give it final, and maybe these minor things are pretty not subjective. We could have the staff
Okay.
confirm
So
them.
you can look at that, yeah. That'd be you. Can you do that? I could try. Okay. Okay, sure, I'll amend that too for final approval today for staff to approve those details. Does that make sense?
Under further discussion, I'd like to see a dropped soffit in the garage mouth from the front.
And that's from the front to the door? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Do we have a seconder for the motion?
I'll second it.
Perfect. I'll go ahead and take roll call vote. Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
No.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, congratulations.
And
Thank you
Mr. Whalen,
very
for the
much.
record, can you state your reasoning?
Yes, certainly, thank you. I don't find this project really meets compatibility requirements. While there aren't examples of distinctive architecture in this neighborhood, this design appears to me to be indifferent and doesn't contribute to or reflect the special, unique, harmonious character of Santa Barbara. Additionally, it's out of character with the surrounding area in its volume, size, massing, and bulk. So it really doesn't preserve the neighborhood character, while be that as it may, and can't be found to be well integrated in the neighborhood harmoniously. In fact, I think it's going to appear to be rather like a housing barge that washed ashore on that block for a long, long time. Thank you.
All right. And then I will announce the 10-day appeal period starting today. And the directions to appeal are on the screen. Thank you.
When did you sell the house? 2020.
Okay.
We closed in August.
So, well, moving on, item 2 is 712 East Coda Street. Are those applicants here?
Me.
Oh, you again, okay. I was wondering, okay. So, a question to staff, can we review these both at the same time, 12 and 10? No.
I'll explain this. So, those additional photos that you guys had, just getting you the, yeah. But it might take a bit to, this one. We'll cross that.
Can we say ditto?
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. To answer your prior question
Well,
about,
let's first introduce the project
sure.
and go through it here. So this is 712 East Coda Street. This project consists of 3-story, 3-unit condominium building with 3 parking spaces, 1 space per unit, on a 5,000 square foot lot. A shared parking easement with the adjacent lot at 710 East Coda is proposed to provide adequate access and maneuverability for vehicles. 3 bike lockers are proposed on the adjacent site, 710 East Coda, along with an easement for access. The existing 1,462 square foot residence will be demolished. The units are proposed to be deed restricted with affordability covenants. The discretionary applications requested for this project are a vesting and tentative subdivision map for, that's what I need, a nap, for 3 condominiums, a parking modification to provide less than a required 2 parking spaces per unit, a front setback modification to allow the entry porch to encroach into the required front setback, and an interior setback modification to allow the trash enclosures to encroach into the required interior setback. Note that a similar proposal for development of the adjacent property at 710 East Coda is being reviewed simultaneously under a plan number, and both projects are shown on the project plans. The property is zoned CG, Commercial General, and has a general plan designation of commercial/high-density residential, 28 to 36 dwelling units per acre. No appealable decision will be made at this hearing. The project will require compliance with the project compatibility guidelines. So that's the, and then I guess it's proper now, good timing to, because these are so interrelated, why can't we review them at the same time? And if not, how can we approach this in an efficient manner?
so, we cannot review these simultaneously because they are on separate parcels and they are agendized as such. But if you would like to make comments regarding both designs, you can do that this first go around. But what we will have to do is we will have to open up the second item, make a motion on that, open up public comment. So we'll have to go through the same process for the second item. But if a lot of the architectural detailing is the same for the first item, go through it as such. we might have an agenda timing issue, but we did go over on the first item, so we'll see how that plays out. But I would say that you can answer all of those questions in the first go-around.
So I would expect that if we made detailed comments on the first one, we could just say, repeat this on the second one.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
And
So,
Chair 6?
Yes.
Hi, Kelly Broderson with
Yes.
Community Development, and I'm the case planner assigned to this project.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to mention that they have, the project is going to go to the staff hearing officer for discretionary review of a tentative subdivision map and a parking modification. So we're looking for comments to the staff hearing officer today if you feel it's ready to move forward. And in general, staff is supportive of the parking modification to provide one parking spot per unit because the units are proposed to be 100% affordable, low income. They will be owned by the Habitat for Humanity, which has a history and a good record of monitoring that each household only has one car through periodic records at the DMV. So that's the reasoning behind staff support of the modification.
All right, Ms.
As you-
Broderson, what architecturally, there was a lot of things that the SLO officer will be judging, but most of them sound more technical than physical. What things that we need to comment on, such as appropriateness of the setback into the front yard, I would imagine?
Chair 6 and board members, I believe through the land development team review process, we might have eliminated the front setback modification. Also, the staff hearing officer will be looking for she'll be making the findings for the parking mod and the.
That's not a very physical thing.
Right,
though.
so
Yeah.
she's not going to be looking at the architectural details. She's going to be looking to you to provide her with information on how you as a board feel that the project is aesthetically compatible with the
Okay.
neighborhood.
But no direct
Not,
specific items that we need to tailor our comments on,
not
okay?
for architecture, no.
And
Although
then-
there is the historically significant
Yes,
buildings nearby that the Ms. Hernandez, the city's architectural historian, did provide a memo to assist you in making the findings as the project moves forward, that the project will be compatible with nearby historically significant buildings.
So there was, say that again, so I can hear it again.
Sure.
Compatible?
Yeah, so
that-
Ms. Hernandez provided the memo pointing out nearby historically significant buildings and provided instruction on how the board could review the project and make the findings that it is compatible. And there's the code section that she provided to you, which I don't know if you had time to look at yet, but as I said, this is only here for concept review today. Looking for either positive comments continued back to the board if you need more information, or positive comments continued to staff hearing officer.
Well, I glanced over that report, and there is nothing, some historic structures are so sensitive that the context around them is important. But I didn't see anything in that, the physical size of other buildings, and, providing an apron or a buffer zone
Yeah.
around. I didn't see anything specific to that. Did I
Sure.
miss it, or I didn't see it?
So in her memo, Chair 6, in her memo, she did provide reference to the recently adopted Historic Resource Design Guidelines, and the specific chapter is Chapter 3.2, New Construction, and it highlights the design guidelines for new construction and how to be sensitive when there is an adjacent historic structure. So obviously, again, I don't know if you've all, or even the applicant has had time to review that, so you might need to ask for more information from the
Yeah,
applicant as you proceed.
I didn't go that deep, so
No, me neither.
I'm not prepared to.
That's okay.
Okay. All righty, so if you'd give your presentation, your names and presentation.
Vice Chair 6, fellow board members, Ed Devasene with DMHA Architect.
Izzy Savage with DMHA. Katie Klein with Perry Eye Landscape Architecture.
So thank you, staff, for some of the background. And so as you have seen, we have an incomplete DART. Some issues have been raised. The design will be modified slightly. before we're deemed complete and go to staff hearing officer. A couple of the items just to bring to your attention. We are working on the parking area when we look at the site and sufficient backout distance and working with transportation on dialing that in. As our staff member, Ms. Brodesson, mentioned, it looks like we are only in need of one modification for the parking. The interior setback modification for trash is not required, nor for the front. Although until we fully resolve the parking, which may push the buildings further forward, we won't have that complete answer. But picking up on the memo from Ms. Hernandez, the architectural historian, this is the second time this project is before you, and some of the public comment raised an issue of an adjacent, just to the east of us, 716 East Coda. But Ms. Hernandez clarified there's actually 4 sensitive properties on the block or very nearby. And we've taken these into account actually from our initial concept that we even presented to you last time. The most notable, of course, is the Santa Barbara Junior High across the street. But I did want to point out one line in her letter, which is why this letter is important, not just giving the context, but she also stated the design of she has reviewed this and she's seen this and provided her input. The design of the project is appropriately sensitive to the federal, state, and city landmarks and other nearby designated historic resources, including city structures of merit sites or natural features. So she's been aware of this project and the design. These are important questions we asked along the way as we developed the concept. So some of the comments from last time, we'll get into that. And actually, I want to just make one technical note update. On the agenda, it incorrectly identifies the CEO or the managing member for Habitat for Humanity. It's actually Jessica Wishan. And so I just want to get that on the record. We can work with staff to get the city records updated on that. We wanted to make that clarification. So the comments from last time, I guess we can bring those up. Yeah.
I couldn't find them for the life of me in the,
The last review, so this was a pre-application review, a one-time pre-application, so I'm actually
so
working
there's
to
no
pull up those record of that
there is a
hearing now.
record? Okay.
Yeah, one moment.
And what I'll do is we go through how we address the comments and any of the design revisions. A lot of them are tied together and there's a lot of overlap. Where we need to specifically identify something, we'll do that. So I'll bring up one of the items, which was we were asked to study, if you recall last time, the elevations, the design of the 2 properties were very similar. So we were asked to differentiate that. So when we took a look at, well, that was one major issue. The other major issue was we're in a flood zone. And so from the back of sidewalk, we need about 4 feet to raise the finished floors up. And we had done it with grading and had a full retaining wall around the perimeter. And the board asked us to study that, take a closer look at that. And so what we did is we actually reduced it half, and then we created stoops to get to the front doors of the unit. So you'll see that. And so to deal with the architecture and the sensitivity to the historic properties at Quarantina, which is an Italianate style, 728 further down the block on Coda is another Italianate. Directly next to us, Colonial Revival, and the Junior High, which is a wonderful Spanish Colonial Revival. We took a look at, well, how do we address all the issues from the board and the historic sensitivity? So here's some inspiration photos from other buildings we find successful in town. So how do we deal with the grade differences stylistically? This one's great because it starts to give you a hint of our proposed project went to 2 different styles, and we went with like a craftsman style on one property, and then like a transitional Victorian, not a full Victorian with all of this detailing, but something more transitional, a little more simple. So here on the bottom left, you can see another relationship of 2 different architectural historic styles and how are they dealing with retaining walls at entries. So we've got some stone walls, which you'll see in our proposed project we integrated as well. That's just a larger view there. Let's see. The brown building here. So this one is another one that's very similar to how our project mass is, relationship to the street, retaining wall. And so these are some of the things we drew inspiration from. And so also, as you see, a lot of these are two-story frontages. There's also a lot of three-story and some even four-story Victorians around town. And so when we looked at this and how do we address all the comments, it was important to look at the context of other successful housing in the city. So did we find the minutes? Do we want to
We do have the
pause
minutes.
and pull them
and
up?
We can,
Good, thank you.
Great.
yes.
Has everybody reviewed that? Okay, thank you. Do we have drawings of the last proposal?
I can work to pull those up as well.
I don't know whether that would help or not.
All great information, Chair. So let's go back to the contact sheets and let me see if there's anything else we want to point out. If you could zoom out, Izzy. Let's see if there's any other pieces. No, that's good. And then the G111 sheet or G001 sheet. Yes, this is just so you have it, an additional photo sheet with more context of the structures. So that one, let's pause there. So in the foreground here is our 712 East Coda property. And to the left of that is the historic 716, our neighbor property, the American Colonial Revival. To give you just get a visual of that. Zoom out, let's see. We've got some 3D views, some aerial views. If these are interesting to the board, we can come back to these if you like. But what we are asked from the board is to understand our project as a streetscape. So why don't we jump to our elevations, and then I can start talking about it. We'll go to how we designed it, the changes we've made, and we'll just give you a tour around the revisions and how the project looks and feels now. So immediately, let's just start with the streetscape. How does the building relate to its neighbors, and what have we done architecturally? So in the green, here's kind of where we landed. The 712 is a more craftsman style, and you can see that we have different roof forms. Here we kept the gable, more typical detail. This is similar to the other Habitat for Humanity project we did a couple blocks away on East Kin Perdido, 800 block. You can see the entry porch, how we extended that out as a partial porch, and also how we started to deal with the grading. So we really did elevate. You can kind of see in the middle, we were only grading halfway up. And then in the background, you can kind of see how we have step-up porches and stoops to kind of pick up the rest of the grading that we need to do. So at the front, the actual AUD setback requirement is 5 feet, that can be variable. And so we can take a look at the site plan in a minute, but again, we're using steps with a 2-foot stone wall, and then before we get up to, which will have some landscape opportunity, before we get to the full 4-foot entry porch. So this is how we kind of dealt with the grading, and it helps reduce the impact to the neighbors by keeping the site on the edges at that lower 2.5 foot grading, as opposed to the full 4 feet for the whole site. On the right-hand side, on 710, here's where we have a more kind of transitional style, a little cleaner than a Victorian, but you can see the proportions are more long and tall, and kept the hip roofs, or we added the hip roofs here, the full porch on the front, and again, dealing with the site in a very similar way. We like the continuity of the stone being similar across. So that would be something important to hear from the board if you like that. As well, if there should be additional differentiation. Then zooming out a little bit, and you can see just the context here. On the right-hand side is another habitat property, is a single-family home that will just be remodeling, not part of this project description. On the left-hand side,
Hold it.
Yes,
The-
Chair.
The one on the right is also owned by Habitat,
correct.
and then it goes from there to the end of to the next street over, right? Into the block, yeah.
Correct. So on elevation 2, you can see that. On the left-hand side, there's the additional habitat home, just will be remodeled. Again, not part of our project scope. Another structure, neighbor just behind that. And then we get to the side, the rest of Quarantina, and that turns down Bond, as the buildings beyond. And we actually have the elevation along Bond here as well, so you can see the context of the structures behind our property, as well to give you a sense of the relationship to the rear neighbors and some of our retaining walls and fencing. And then let's go to the perspectives, because elevations are great, but there we go. So let's start right here. So again, now you have the elevation streetscape fresh. The right-hand side is the Quarantina corner. Oh, you can just hold that right there. It's perfect. And then you can see 710 and the green 712, and off to the distance, our neighbor at 716. And here you get a better sense of the proportions and the differences of the projects and the size. And here, this is where, although we have a third-story element, really pushing it back is really important. And again, we think what we've come up with is a good balance of, again, we saw our inspiration imagery. There's a variety of different architectural styles throughout town. Some are taller, some are shorter, some are single-story, two-story, some are bigger Victorians. But usually the taller Victorians, there's more room around them. So in this case, that third-floor setback is really, really important. So let's continue to the left side. We just same frontage, just looking the other direction. And then finally, upper right-hand corner. This is going around the corner on Quarantina. So our neighbor to kind of the southwest, and how the project looks from that vantage point. So from here, let's take a closer look at the elevations and just walk you around, including one of the views the board asked for was in the middle. So how does it look like from the parking court as well? So we'll just walk around. And we'll start at the street. Get our views set up here. Excellent. So this is 710. So a little closer view. The board asked for heights, so we've provided that now. And our 0 point is our new finished floor. So that's our 0 point, which is approximately 4 feet above the back of the sidewalk, 3.5 to 4 feet, depending on where we are along the frontage. And so we're at our peak here is about 33, almost 34 feet. And so I also make note, these interior setbacks aren't actually required setbacks per the AUD. That was something through the DART process. But as we're still, even though that's the case, we're not proposing to change the sides or interior setbacks of the project. We still want to keep our massing back at those locations as we're proposing. Again, the frontage, it will depend on how we resolve the issue of the parking and transportation. So let's move to this side elevation. So here, this is facing towards the west. One of the things that we are asked to do is take a look at privacy for the neighbors as well. So in particular on the lower level, we really minimize the number of openings. Most of these are utility openings or storage. We only have 2 windows on this side, and then of course we'll have fencing from the private yards as well. So we try to minimize that. And even here on the second and third floor, most of these are bedrooms, and so there's small windows on the bedrooms, and even where we have an active area like a living room, I think it's just on the middle unit, we're only putting a small opening, and where we have larger openings, they're on the interior courtyard side. And here you can get a sense of the solar as well on the roof that's required. And let's move to the next elevation. So here at the rear, this actually fronts a commercial building. So there's not a residence on this side. We're, again, around 6 to 10 feet. There's a little setback on the floors. You can see that in the floor plan. And the windows are a little larger here because we don't have an immediate residential neighbor. And then from the driveway, so on the right-hand side is Coda Street. You can see the slope from the back of the sidewalk coming up the driveway. A little gentler this time. It's more like a 5% than 10% because we kept our grading lower. And here's where we have our bike lockers in the middle, carport parking. There's a trash enclosure space in there, we're kind of concealing that. And here you get a sense for the rear units, our kind of stairs with the front porches again. So we kind of came up with this hybrid approach. We do have a full retaining wall for a portion on the very left-hand side. Those do step back once you pass the corner of the residences. They do drop back lower to bring those that retaining down. And this was how we kept that area more usable, is kind of how we have it. And you'll see that in the site plan. Here you get a good sense of the interior elevation of the project and the color differentiations and such. So let's move to the next building. So we'll start at the front again, the street side. Just a little more detail. Here you can see what I will point out on the left-hand side. This is similar on the others. See where the fence is. That's where our double detector will be, is towards the front side of that. So we'll screen that with some landscaping, a smaller, probably a 4-inch instead of something bigger because it's residential in size. But behind that gate is where we have our electric panels for the buildings, some of the electrical panels. And we'll see that as we go around. And that's similar on the 710 building. So now to the east elevation. So there on the right-hand side, again, you can see how from the street behind that fence is some of our electrical panels. Again, same strategy, utility closets and minimized windows. We only have 2 on the lower level here for neighbor privacy. And then as we go up, we're trying to keep the window sizes smaller. Again, deal with our egress windows, but when we have active living areas, keep the smaller windows are at the top of stairs. Just a little more sensitivity to the neighbors. Here you can get a sense of the mass stepping as well. And also the building heights. Next page. Again, to the rear, and this is the other portion where the commercial along Bond Street. It's their parking lot, so there's not a residential structure here, but it's going to be their parking. So here's going to be a little bit more about privacy for our residents. And you can also see the step back down from the left-hand side, bringing that grade down as we wrap to the neighbors at 716 and on the opposite side as well. Again, similar window breakups. And then finally, in the courtyard elevation. Again, Coda Street on the left-hand side. Coming up the driveway, you get a great sense here of the entry porch, actually, and how we've raised that. And then our carport parking, and there's pathways to some private fencing and gates that get to the private yards for each of these 3 units. And our entry kind of stoop for the 2 rear units that wind up to the 2nd and 3rd floors. So let me see how we've addressed the comments to date from last time. So this really does address window placements, windows as large as possible, is again more proportioned to the style, minimizing where we have potential privacy conflicts. But in other areas, like as you can see here, we have like a little set of patio doors where from inside the project we can pull a little more light into the units. But always it's really about the style and just openings proportionate to the style. I think I've covered all of the major design elements. We do have full civil design and survey if we want there was a question, a comment last time about relation to the existing grade, but in all of these site elevations and sections, probably gives you the most accurate kind of representation as you walk around the elevations. So with that, I will pass it to Katie so she can walk you through the landscape, and I'll look over my notes and see if there's anything I need to come back to.
So Katie, you have negative time.
Perfect. That's my best. I'll quickly walk you through everything. I'll start with the hardscape. We're doing permeable pavers to delineate pedestrian versus vehicular. We have some images. If you zoom out a little, Izzy, and you can kind of see gray for pedestrian, a tan blend gray for vehicular. Ed already mentioned in the front, we have retaining walls that help with that elevation change. And also, we're going to plant in front and in the retaining wall. So that will help with the elevation change as well. And then our patios, there's an image there of gravel. We really wanted to make it as flexible as possible for the residents. So just really simple gravel patios, all very permeable, and then planting wherever we can get it. So smaller trees in the patios are a cercis we're calling out along the driveway and wherever we can get more of a near where the trash is in the center, those patios, that's more of a vertical tree. We have Himenosporum or Brisbane box as an option. And then at the back of the property, we have a large skyline tree. We actually think we're going to do more of an African tulip to help with the mess. So the back of the property is fencing, the whole property is fenced, but we're having vines wherever we can get that as well. We're thinking of jasmine to help with the smell of the neighboring property, something that'll just smell really nice. And then the plant palette is all low water, very Mediterranean. And I'm here for questions if needed.
Thank you very much. So
Thank you,
with
Katie. So let's, a couple more things. Let's
Okay.
stay to the site plan because I didn't walk through that. But you can see, I don't need to walk you through it. You can see the relationship at the front. Again, we're working with transportation in the center parking carport area to see how we need to push and pull here. But as we noted, we don't have the modifications now because there are no required setbacks on the interior side. But we want to keep them just for livability and usability of the private fenced-in areas. The only other thing, let's go back to the visuals. So one thing as well, and which is the discretion of the board, we love our 3D and digital representations. And for this project, we would propose, or we would request not having a story pole requirement. And if the board's comfortable, we could take these to a higher level of photorealism as well, with actual photos of the neighbor buildings and any additional views that the board may want to see, but obviously that's to the discretion of the board whether you require story poles. And that requirement would be for the staff hearing officer presentation. So that's why it's an important thing to get your feedback, your direction on that particular item. I think we did cover all of the pieces. You understand the design changes we made, how we addressed the comments from last time. So yeah, we're excited to get your comments, and it really is picking up where you left off last time. Habitat wants to maximize the opportunity of this project with the 3 units and the 3 bedrooms, and they're very comfortable with the one vehicle space, which is more of a staff hearing officer issue, but we're excited that how the DART came back and was very supportive of the project as well.
All right, thank you very much. With that conclusion of the presentation, we'll open up public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. I do have one speaker slip today. It's from Melissa Haskell. Ms. Haskell, if you want to come up to the podium, make sure that your mic is on with the green light, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Hello. Thank you, board members. My name is Melissa Haskell, and I'm the owner of 716 East Coda Street, immediately adjacent to the proposed project. My family has owned this property for over 4 generations. There's a lot of issues. Parking. I know you've hopefully have heard from a lot of my neighbors, but parking in this neighborhood is a nightmare. Units with 1 space per unit is not going to suffice. Nobody in this world only has 1 car. My third point would be the privacy. A 3-story apartment with windows looking directly down into my yard is troubling, to say the least. I'm also concerned about blocking the natural light to the property, having to live in the shadows of an apartment. And I do have a letter here that a lot of the neighbors have signed. And I do want to say here's a quote from the Bond Avenue project that got rejected. Most of the other homes on this street are one story. The ABR members fear that if this project is approved at 4 stories, nearly property line to property line, all others will follow, creating a canyon feel to the block. Every house on our block is a single-story home. The scale of this project, I feel, is out of place for our street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. Moving on to virtual participants. If anyone joining via Zoom would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. Not seeing any raised hands. We did receive written correspondence from Scott Cohen, Gabe Reyes, Jose Gonzalez, Abby Fregosa, Jose Bernal, Daniel Reyes, Mario Reyes, and Adrian Stevenson, which was distributed to the board prior to the meeting. Excuse me.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we will close public comment and bring it back to questions from the board. Who would like to start?
Vice
Mr.
Chair
Whalen?
Six, sorry, pardon the interruption. Board.
Yes.
I also have the old previous design too, if that's, I was able to find those drawings as well. So if you would like to see the previous,
We could yes.
Whenever.
Okay, maybe in questions. Mr. Whalen?
Vice Chair Six, a couple of questions for, I guess specifically for staff. Does this project meet the height limits for the neighborhood?
Chair 6 and Board Member Whaling, yes, it does.
Yes.
It's a commercial
And what
zone.
is the maximum in that neighborhood?
Maximum zone is 45 feet.
45.
Sorry, maximum height, yes.
Is 45.
45 feet.
And so this is well under that, thank you.
Yes.
And could you explain in brief as possible detail the front porch setback encroachment, what's driving that, what it is and what's driving it?
Chair 6 and Board Member Whalen, at the last ABR meeting, the board did request that the architect provide more usable porch entries in the front. And so that pushed them out into the front street, but because it's an AUD project in a commercial zone, they do have a variable front setback, so it doesn't technically need a modification as was originally suspected.
So the porch got bigger, but the structure itself didn't move, if I
Correct.
understand you correctly. Okay, good, thank you. And those are my questions. No, I'm sorry, I do have some more here. Let's see, if you can go to your sheet A205, which I believe is image 18. Let's see, I'm interested in issue 518, yes? So on the lower image, yes, if you can zoom in there, is that the garage of the adjacent parcel or the house that we see on the right?
Vice Chair Six, Board Member Whalen, it's an accessory structure. It's not the main house. I'm not sure if it's the garage.
It is the structure at the end of the driveway. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And then on that same image, where is the property line? So the accessory structure, if you will, lies virtually on the parcel line. Thank you. I think that's all of my questions. Thank you, Vice Chair Six.
Thank you, Mr. Whalen. Mr. Noon?
Thank you. I just a very quick question about the windows. I know you were directed and have done an exercise of placing the windows per our direction. Are you continuing to study that, or is this, if we're in support, this is the direction you plan to go? That's sort of a loaded question, but
Yes.
Sure. Board Member Noon, it's always a push-pull. So we can take, we're at a conceptual level, right? But you can see we have a model. We can go from any vantage point on or off property and take a closer look at sensitive areas and dial them in. And we're happy to work closer with the neighbors, not just at 716, but also on the Quarantina properties as well that are more immediately impacted. And it's different in each case. So we do, because we have the ability to make fine-tuned adjustments with that information, we're happy to continue to look at appropriate placement.
Mr. Black?
I don't have any questions right now.
Okay, Ms. Anderson?
Did I see that you guys have rain chains on the gutter downspouts? And I guess the question is, what is your thought process behind using those?
Yeah, go ahead. Your turn.
So our thought with it's only in one location for the rain chain was here because we have this gabled roof and it'd just be an awful place for a gutter. It's a nice sound and it gives it a little more residential feel.
Okay, thanks. And then have you guys already gone through like the trash sizing exercise with the city? Okay.
Yes, Board Member Anderson, we have.
Great. And then we don't see any solar study, and that's because we don't have anybody on our south, right? Or
Chair 6,
don't have to, right?
it's in a commercial zone, so
Okay.
it doesn't apply at this time.
Alrighty. And I think the rest of mine are comments, so.
Okay, my questions are, do we have the design drawings of the very rough schematics that they came with before? I'm interested in the side elevations. So that, the 3-story was in the middle and then dropped down. And, Mr. Vicente, is it the same amount of bedrooms and units?
Vice Chair 6, correct. It's 3 per, each parcel is 3 units with 3 bedrooms each, which was the same as the
Okay.
previous.
But the configuration has changed here.
Correct.
Okay. Do you have, that's enough with that presentation. Do you have as you have a composite from, what's the return street there, looking through the corner property, that one, yes. No, what would it be, the south elevation? Yeah.
Along Quarantina
Yes.
or through
Quarantina.
Bond?
What's this?
This is Quarantina.
Quarantina, okay. So that's a good image showing the adjacent property and the, do you have a mirror image of that from showing the relationship of your project to 716?
No, we do not. With like a foreground?
Yeah.
No, we do not.
Do we have anywhere footprint of the land and structure configuration of 716?
It'd probably be the aerials and the supplemental, Izzy. I don't think yeah, see if there's another view from around. That's around the corner. Yes, just up above there. There we go. That's 716 right there. So you can get a better sense of their driveway and also the garage at the back.
That's only a 1-story, correct?
Correct.
And then the garage, and then there's another accessory structure there. Yeah. Oh, In your elevations and so forth, you're required to be, your finished floors 1 foot above base flood elevation?
Vice Chair Six, that's correct, which is what they're designed to right now, to the design flood elevation,
Okay.
which is 1 foot above the base.
So, can we see your site plan?
We have a civil, landscape, or architectural. Do you have a preference?
That's good enough right there, just the basic elements. So, the driveway up is, when we get to the top of the inclined driveway, sloping up, we're not out of flood control. Though the parking is still below
Correct.
flood level. The trash, the bikes are still. Okay, and humor me, can you go to the interior elevation of one of the? So how high is the, how high is the posts, how high are the garage openings in the middle section? Are those excessively high because the grade is still down a couple, almost 3 feet maybe from finished floor, but yet when you're on the floor above, the garages are at the finished floor of the second floor. Do you see what I'm saying?
Correct. That's correct, Vice Chair Six. So I think the minimum carport standards is 6'6" or 6'8". I think we're working through with transportation. And so it's really just the beam that's picking up the floor above. So it is taller than what is required.
Oh, what I'm trying to see is there, as the first iteration had the 3-story in the middle, could you have the 3-story in the middle portion and drop it down and either further drop the parking and therefore a minimum height parking and 2 stories above that to really sink a middle 3-story element down?
Oh, this is becoming a pretzel conversation. We're
Yes.
twisting it because the entry door is always going to be at that, that's the small, the red door. Thank you, Izzy. She knows the complexities of the design. All I can say is we can certainly study if that's a possibility. I understand what you're getting at is can that come down? And there might be a way. There might be a way to actually do that if the board feels that's an important
Well, I
approach.
just, I'm real sensitive to in the way this impact, I know that, this in comments, but I'm very sensitive to the way this impacts the neighbor and the neighbors up and down the street. Granted, it's commercial, but, and the property to the west is same ownership, so they can live with whatever they build next to it. But, okay, anyway, I just wondered if that could be explored.
I would suggest looking at the floor plans closer if the board wanted to push us that direction, just to understand it in a little more.
Now, it seems to me you could have the very rear and the very front units up on plinths as required. But the middle 2 units up on second and third floor could be lowered quite a bit by lowering the parking and parking garage heights and then shortening the stair run that we see the 2 stairs side by side.
Correct.
does everybody understand where I'm going with this?
Yep.
Can I jump in, Board Member Six? Just why were they, the taller portions moved to the back from the middle?
Izzy, do you recall? I think this is when you and Ryan were more intimately kind of pushing and pulling these pieces around.
I think it came from the feeling that it was too bulky too soon. So it was pushed further back to minimize that, to try to not have it so tall close to the street frontage.
Thank you.
Okay, I think those are my questions. Just, no, that's the end of my questions. So, to comments. Ms. Anderson?
Sure. I think this is an interesting project because it's kind of a standard size site that we're putting an AUD project on in a location that you don't see a lot of these yet, at least not right now. And I think the styles that have been chosen for the mass and height of these projects is appropriate. And unfortunately, we don't have the space to give it that nice breathing room in the front, which makes all of these beautiful Victorian or craftsman style homes along De La Vina so nice. And so I think that's unfortunate, but obviously we can't do much about that. I do think that the stepped entry was successful, and I appreciate you guys studying that and keeping the parking lower. I think that actually really is an improvement to the project from last time. I would look at studying the location of the trash enclosure next to 716 on the east side, just its proximity and possibly layout. I support the stone use in the base. I think that's appropriate. I understand where Vice Chair 6 was going with lowering the third floor by putting it in the middle, and maybe the entry you enter from the exterior, and then your actual entry into the unit is at the top of the stairs. I don't know if that would actually work with the flood elevation, but I don't know, I'm torn because I feel like the third story belongs in the back of the property. So I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's just a thought. Yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult one because it feels like it should just be a one-story house. But anyways, I feel like the styles are appropriate for the mass.
All right, thank you. Mr. Wayland?
Sure, thank you, Vice Chair 6. First of all, a couple of general comments. The requirement of making it 4 feet higher for the flood zone is truly an unfortunate requirement because it's driving all sorts of really almost tragic consequences for the layout of the house and the neighborhood and sight lines and compatibility. Along with general comments, just a nod to our city historian, Nicole Hernandez, for describing the notorious portico. I just am fascinated by that phraseology. But skillfully, you've done a terrific job in the craftsman style here and giving us examples. However, you didn't give us any examples of 3-story craftsman buildings, of which I would think there are very few to none. That being that style just doesn't really lend itself to 3-story buildings, and to my mind, it gets a little awkward, although you've stepped back the heights in an admirable way. I think there is room, as Member Anderson and 6 have intimated, that the bulk could be shifted around on site and and miraculously engineering the parking so that you dance around the 4-foot height flood requirement is admirable. Let's see, what else do I have? I do think it's incompatible with the adjacent house, the notorious Portico house, in that it tends to loom over it and overwhelm such a superb and idiosyncratic example. It's very, very unique, as our historian points out. Your photo documents only speak to those houses to be removed. It is a very unified block. The multi-story here, even the second story, not even talking about the third, just doesn't occur anywhere on that block. And I really don't find this item to be in compliance with the guidelines and compatible. So, and mostly because of size, bulk, and scale. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Noon?
Yeah, I don't know that I would have a whole lot to add to that. I think, I do like the idea of figuring out a creative way to have this building less looming, if you will. Maybe it's Vice Chair Six's recommendation. I don't know what that is, but I think that's a very. I think there could be something there. I don't know that I agreed with moving the 3-story to the back and pulling it back to the middle and shortening it. I think all that works together. So I'm in agreement with both of those comments. Still, I alluded to the windows. That needs definite refinement, just for the sake of privacy and just design itself. But I think you guys are probably headed there anyway, so. I also struggle, as Board Member Whalen said, with the compatibility. So I would be interested in seeing further development of how that can be reduced, the size of the building can be reduced.
Thank you, Mr. Newton. Mr. Black?
I don't really have any, I would agree with those comments, and I don't really have anything to add to them, but I think stylistically, I think it's successful, but the issues of size, bulk, and scale are troubling, to say the least, but you know that, so. That's
All right. Yeah, so I echo the same. I think that the mass, bulk, and scale are of issue, especially, well, you've got things going for you. You have the commercial in the back, one parking lot and one large commercial building, story and a half or whatever. And then you have, to your west, you have, like ownership, the same ownership. But just really, 716 is really impacted, and I think the overall block will be impacted. So I'm really having trouble with the scale of the 3 stories. I'm wondering whether, I don't know if it's in our domain to require less units, but I can see a hybrid of maybe the unit, retaining the units on the west 710 west, and doing something a little less aggressive in number of units and so forth on 712 to respect more the affected neighbor. I do think, because we're at that bigger picture, that another college try at, as I suggested, taking advantage of, almost getting back to existing grade for the parking and elements, trash and bicycles, really sink them down, and therefore placing over them the third-story mass, I think you could really get quite a bit of mass down there. So I think I would suggest a continuance to study a more in a very broad way the configuration and the layout and the grading of this. I do have to say that the perimeters, the step downs of the block, the retaining plinth around the property is very is going in the right direction, but it's still, the overall mass spoken scale is tough. And I don't think we can rely on, I don't think it's a commercial zone, but I don't think it is a neighborhood in transition. You can't, I think that this needs to fit more with the existing context than the future context in this particular instance. So, that being said, would you like a indefinite then?
Vice Chair Six, yes, and also if you could address, or is it premature on story poles until you see it next time?
I think I would like to hold off on story polls as long as I can, and it's up to you what you bring in as a presentation. I think it would be important, and I think we should mention in our motion to fully document graphically and in photographs the impact to 716. As I say, a similar, what do you call it, a see-through elevation as you have done on the west. Do the same with the east, and make sure we know how that property is used in the footprint.
Vice Chair Six.
Yes.
Vice Chair Six, to respond to the story polls, Mr. DiVincente, I think that might work against your case to put them up with just one-story houses there now. I don't think
Well-
anybody on the board really feels that they're necessary for obvious reasons graphically. So I would caution that avenue being even implemented or explored.
Well, we are the ones that would require it.
Well,
And
then,
we'll,
I would advocate against them just from what I can see too. And as what they would project to the public and the neighborhood, I think is already a given, if not an exacerbation.
okay, well, we can kick that one down the road with whatever they come up with and an indefinite so I will make a motion for an indefinite continuance that the project presented is a very admirable attempt to minimize the present program selected for this site, but it is, in the opinion of the board, that it is too aggressive for its, too massive and too high for its surrounding context. There have been several discussions about how to rearrange the parts and revise elevations in order to further minimize the massing of the project. The board finds that the styles and architecture are successful to, mostly successful, and we question the success of a three-story Craftsman. That when the applicant returns, we would like to see more fuller documentation of the impact of the project on 716 East Coda. Is that, I think that's it.
I can second that. I would like to insert a phrase regarding the section on size, bulk, and scale, that the site is overdeveloped, which is out of the guidelines.
I'll accept that. Any other discussion? Have we given you direction?
Yes, Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor.
Perfect. And I will go ahead and take roll call vote on it. And just to confirm, this is to return to the board?
Full board, yes.
Okay, perfect. And then I'll take roll call. Vice Chair Six?
Yes.
Board Member Anderson?
Yes.
Board Member Black?
Yes.
Board Member Noon?
Yes.
Board Member Whalen?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Good. We'll stay for the next item as well.
Oh, now we can do that. So, I was asleep.
Chair 6, may I ask for 5 minutes? Sorry? Oh. Oh, okay.
So, moving on to item 3, 710 East Dakota Street, which has the exact same description as the previous item number 2. And I would make a motion that open public, if the applicant has the identical presentation, no?
Chair, we would just say ditto.
Ditto. Good. So with that, we will open public comment on 710 East Coda.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. I currently do not have any speaker slips for the item. Going to virtual participants, if anyone would like to speak on this item, 710 East Coda, item 3, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. Not seeing any raised hands, we did receive written correspondence from Scott Cohen, Gabe Reyes, Jose Gonzalez, Abby Fregosa, Jose Bernal, Daniel Reyes, Mario Reyes, and Adrian Stevenson, which was distributed to the board prior to the meeting. Back to you.
All right, that being the case, we will close public comment. And I assume that our questions would be ditto as 712. Any other new questions or new comments?
Just a side comment, it appears that there is somebody who would like to make a comment. Were you aware to fill out a speaker slip and submit it? I think we can do that rather rapidly if need. Yes, please. Well, we must follow our protocol, so if you could quickly furnish a slip.
We have identified a speaker, so we will go back and open public comment.
You can make your comment and then fill out the speaker slip afterwards.
Hello, my name is Christopher. I noticed you guys all mentioned that there's no third-story floor near that area. If you're looking from the junior high at the buildings to the left, above 19.6, there's a third-story floor right there. It's a parking garage, it's 19.6 building, and then above there's somebody living right up there. So that would be a 3-story building, as you guys previously mentioned that there wasn't. Just want to let you guys know.
Okay, thank you very much. So where were we? We were dittoing the
Questions?
we were in questions, and I assume there's no new questions nor new comments. And for the record, I think we can repeat exactly the motion that we used for 712 on 710. And I'll make that exact motion, and seconded by?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion on the floor.
Thank you, and I'll go ahead and take roll call vote. Vice Chair Six?
Yes.
Board Member Anderson?
Yes.
Board Member Black?
Yes.
Board Member Noon?
Yes.
And Board Member Wheeler?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Yeah.
We will take a 5-minute recess. The Architectural Board of Review for February 6th. Next on the agenda is 311 West Montecito Street. This is a proposal for a new two-story, 3,852 square foot hotel containing 3 units. Each unit would include a kitchenette, living room, 2 bedrooms, and outdoor space. Hotel amenities including drop-off, check-in, concierge, etc. would be provided at 302 West Montecito Street, the primary hotel location. Parking would also be provided at 302 West Montecito Street via a shared parking agreement. The project requires development plan and coastal plan development permit approval by the staff hearing officer. No appealable decision will be made at this hearing. Project will require compliance with the project compatibility findings and urban design guidelines. Project was last reviewed on August 8th, 2022. And before we have the applicant present, does staff have any comments, especially regarding the relationship with the larger hotel across the street and how things are shared and so forth?
Well, first of all, I wanted to say that, thank you, Vice Chair Six, that when this project came before you back in August,
Name for the record.
I'm sorry, Kathleen Kennedy,
Thank you,
project
Kathleen.
planner. You reviewed this project back in August, and you continued it to the staff hearing officer at that time. But so I've requested them to come back before you in order to make the project compatibility findings. They need to be forwarded to the staff hearing officer preliminarily. And then also there's an adjacent structure of merit that wasn't discussed. So I want to make sure you're aware of it. There's a structure of merit designated building at 215 Bath, and the applicant will show that location in their presentation, but you need just to be aware of the location of that. It's right behind the proposed project site. And this is an annex to the other larger hotel building across the street, and that will be coming back to you in a few weeks, I think maybe even 2 weeks, for project design approval.
Okay, Ms. Kennedy, does this mean that we are just simply adding, we're not re-reviewing this, we're just simply adding technically the
findings?
The findings?
Well, they've actually made a few changes, and you asked for a couple of things, so
Okay.
they're providing that as
Great.
well.
All right.
So,
I understand now. Thank you. All right. So your name and your presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair Six, board members. My name is Noah Greer, here with On Design Architects.
Sam Mayfist, landscape architect with Earthform Design.
And Vice Chair Six, to the rest of the board as well, I have the minutes from the previous hearing, and I would like to just read those before the applicant gets started. So this was continued to the staff hearing officer for return to the full board with the following comments. The board generally supports the size and scale of the project. The board would like to see further development according to the guidelines along the streetscape. The board would like to see more pictures of the surrounding sites. The applicant shall provide design materials of the perimeter fencing. The board would like the landscape architect to be present when the project returns to APR. The applicant shall provide photos of the hotel that the project is associated with. And then there are some individual comments as well. Chair Moore stated that he is opposed, and he generally does not think the project design is ready for the staff hearing officer review at this time. He believes there are a lot of incomplete material with the application, such as the standard photos not being presented. Chair Moore expressed that there is no way of knowing if there are conflicts or issues with the neighbors, and that there is not enough information to give the staff hearing officer. Board Member 6 is opposed, concurs. Board Member 6 is opposed, concurs with the Chair Moore's comments. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. It was my fault entirely. We didn't have the site context before. It had been submitted, but I didn't include it with the presentation, so we'll just run through that now. The site is on West Montecito between Bath and Castillo. You can see it outlined here, and I'll just flip through a number of these photos. But you can see to the sort of southeast here, the gray rectangular building here. This is the structure of merit at 215 Bath that we'll be seeing later. Okay, now we're looking south-ish off West Montecito towards the site. The driveway gate you see there is our site, and the steeply pitched roof there is the existing structure that would be demolished. We have a couple of views here looking down that driveway. And here looking at the front facade, ivy-covered facade of the existing cottage. And here we've walked down the driveway and from the court, parking court looking back, north. More of the parking court. And I should say, I'm sorry, flipping back there, you can see the adjacent structures that are located above the adjacent retail. These may be, there may be an apartment unit. Can't say for certain the use. More driveway. Now we're looking sort of southwest, and you can see behind the trees there are two-story apartments on the other side. You have the street elevation largely hidden with the existing trees. Again, on the right side, the two-story apartments that are existing. Okay, and I'll have a smattering of photos of the neighborhood. We'll start at the intersection of Bath and West Montecito. Here now looking back at the commercial structure with the spaces above that we just saw from the motor court. There's also a grocery store here, there's a restaurant here, there's a few different uses. Okay, now looking to the northeast from that intersection, the car wash. And then another corner from there, the neighborhood. And then here at the corner, this is a structure that will be demolished as part of the proposed hotel. And the pending project is an annex to this project, and we'll see that in later images. Okay, now we're back looking at our driveway and seeing the adjacent apartment complex. It's 2 stories at the street, and then it sort of steps back and then continues back in that property as a 2-story apartment complex. Across the street, more or less, we have a residential care center. And then looking back towards Castillo, here you can see Santa Cruz Market. Okay, from the Santa Cruz Market driveway, more or less, looking back. And now, from that same vantage point, looking back towards Castillo, seeing more of these apartment units, some single-story apartment units closer to Castillo. Okay, Santa Cruz Market. And now we're on Bath Street. So we're looking at the driveway of the structure in question, the structure of merit. And there we are, looking at 215 Bath. It's a 2-story, stucco sided. It does have a parapet roof, but there is clay tile on certain elevations. I think the photos tell the story, mostly. Okay, in this site view, you can see at the top left the freeway, and then we have Castillo, West Montecito, and Bath to orient you. So 311 here is the pending project, and that is an annex to this larger project at 302. That's the primary hotel. That provides parking, et cetera, for our pending project at 311. Another annex is also proposed at 328 at the corner here, and that is going to HLC. We've been there once, and we're headed back hopefully soon. Oh, and I'm sorry, I should also clarify, once again, near the pool, here that gray rectangle is our structure of merit, and here we can see that there is a portion of it that's gabled red tile roof. Okay. We don't yet have photos, of course, of the proposed hotel at 302 West Montecito, but this is the currently proposed elevation. It's very, very similar to what has been approved by City Council. Because the project was appealed to City Council, as part of that process, the City Council requested that it be redesigned from a more contemporary design that I believe was seen by your board and approved to a more classic sort of Spanish design. And this is very similar, though slightly updated to what the City Council approved for the project. It's at a much different scale, of course, in our project. The intention is that we have the style, the overall style is Spanish, and a few design elements that relate to the main project without it feeling like they're pieces of a single structure. Okay, and now this is the other annex. It's proposed at the corner of Castillo and West Montecito. Much the same, similar in style, but distinctive enough not to feel like it's all a single design. This primary elevation here, this west elevation, that's a view from Castillo. Okay. We have a few massing models. We talked through these in detail last time, but something of note here is that behind our project, let's say south of our project here, you can see the structure of Merit. It's roughly modeled to the best of our ability, probably appears a bit taller than it actually is given the perspective, but it is set, the first floor is set off the ground a few feet. It's the way the structure was designed. Okay, now we'll spin around a few 3D views of our site, showing here the adjacent apartment complex where I was mentioning that the two-story element pulls in the site and then pushes back to the rear here. And then the element of the adjacent property that we saw from the motor court that's 2 stories is here in this image. Okay, and now here we're seeing the structure of Merit in our foreground with our proposed project here. Okay, continuing to spin around. Okay, I won't go through the plans in too much detail, but I did want to walk through just in the site plan very quickly the changes we made that will probably be read more clearly in the renderings that I'll share. The board had some concerns about the streetscape, the scale of the streetscape, and whether the architecture itself was addressing the street appropriately. We redesigned the entry to provide more of sort of a thickened entry gate that you'll see in rendering, and it'll probably read a bit more clearly. And we also substantially reduced the height of this patio wall, the garden patio wall, and then we pulled the entry back from where it had been previously located, farther from the street, while also adding a number of windows to that street-facing elevation. Hopefully your board will find the changes went in the right direction. Okay, here is our proposed street elevation now. You can see the primary entry gate here, and this being a sort of thickened wall entry condition. And then the majority of the changes were made to this elevation. This wall, now a 42, maybe a 48-inch high site wall at that courtyard, substantially lower, really opening this courtyard to the street. Again, this entry element was pushed back, and then we've added a number of larger windows here to face the street. Okay, we'll just quickly walk around the building. Here, the west elevation, a few changes from last time. South elevation, few if any changes. East elevation, the same, very few changes, although that entry condition has changed. Okay, I'll zoom in on the landscape plan for Sam.
Thank you, Noah. So addressing maybe the Montecito Street landscape area, I think last time there was proposed a larger canopy tree in the foreground of our property. And, you know, to your point, at that point, there's a street tree designation of the jacaranda that is quite healthy in our immediate direct north position, and along the street there's quite a nice canopy. So we don't feel like we need a volume tree, but the way the fenestration works and the way the style of the architecture works, the quarter line, the king palm, those types of subtropical looks against and with this architecture is what we're proposing. So you see the number 2 is kind of indicating maybe a multi-trunk group of cordyline and Nevesia. we'd be planting the sub and lower areas with drought-tolerant succulents and other subtropical plants, all of mostly low WUCAL status in terms of drought tolerance and sustainability. On the right and left side, framing the building because of the heights of the two structures to the west and the east, we might be using either a pindo palm or a king palm. Going down into our courtyards or coming through the entry, in order to soften the architecture on the commercial side, we've added some king palms with a little more height to compete or to soften the two-story apartment complex and the roof structure looking straight to the east. Same thing's true on the upper floor. On the west side, we have kind of a courtyard opening or balcony. So we're putting some palms aligning that elevation so that when we're looking next door to the neighbor that's a two-story all the way along the entire length of the property, we're baffling or feathering or giving some layering effects of landscaping to our openings. And then as you move further back, we have a pea gravel walkway all around the building to keep it from any kind of moisture problems and for ease of maintenance and circulation. And then we're putting palms and the feeling of the palm culture and subculture around the west side and east, I guess it would be the southeast corner, because again, looking towards the historical building of Merit, there's quite some volume there, so we're trying to break that up. We did see the opportunity to add a canopy tree in the back. Number 15 is a jacaranda, so we're kind of bringing in the back of the building a lacier, softer, feathery flowering tree. And then a lot of that is just low ground cover to complement flower and texture for the hotel rooms, windows looking out, surrounding the courtyard. So it's all border planting, but it's meant to be very interesting and to complement the elevations in looking onto the property from all 4 elevations. I think that kind of summarizes it mostly.
All right, anything else? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We'll end just looking at a few images here, and I'll address the comments from your board, or talk through again, I should say, the revisions to the entryway. You can zoom in here for you. So this is the new sort of thickened entry gate condition. I believe we would propose a wrought iron gate that has yet to be designed with the door there. This element was pushed back. It had been closer to the street in a different design. But essentially the intention was to push the entry a bit back so that this element of the site could pull in front of it and just give us a little more layering in terms of how it addresses the street. And then there are a number of additional windows compared to what your board saw last time. There's also these walls were all quite tall before. And in response to your board's comments, the intention here is to bring the scale down a few notches so that it feels a bit more pedestrian friendly than it did before. Okay, we'll just look at 2 more images. Here where we're seeing the adjacent apartments in the foreground. And then here from the other angle. Okay, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you.
One more quick item.
Yes.
I think in the elevations of the isometric, it showed some fencing. So there's going to be a boundary fence, probably a cedar or redwood fence that'll surround the back and south and west and east side, right? And that'll probably be a dark brown color.
And that'll be your
contrast.
fence? And
Correct.
the neighbor does not have one yet? Okay, thanks.
Correct.
All right, with that, we will open public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. I do not have any speaker slips today. We do not have any more virtual participants, and we did not receive written correspondence, so back to you.
That being the case, we'll close public comment and bring it to the board for questions. Who would like to start? Ms. Anderson?
I can start. Okay, in the landscape plan, you mentioned that you said it was gravel paths back?
Against the building, there will be pea gravel.
Okay. Did you consider giving some landscape area between the building and the walkway?
Pulling it away from the building?
Correct.
It's quite narrow, so I think we were just trying to leave a clear path and soften what the rooms would actually be looking at against the
okay.
fencing, as opposed to pushing it too close to the building and not allowing some depth of viewing from window out.
Okay. And then the other pavement is I can't remember what you said, I'm sorry. Is it a permeable paver? Or
Yes.
It is, okay. And then on the second floor, I just wanted to confirm, I think in the 3Ds, you cannot access the flat roofs, correct, in the back?
That is correct.
Okay. And same with this one in the front, that's a parapet,
That is correct.
okay. Railing is- Oh, in your, I don't know if they're hand sketched elevations, the railing proposed in that, is it gonna be similar to the main hotel and the other annex, or are you proposing something different?
Board members, that's a good question. I'm thinking of the railings on the main hotel that are primarily interior only facing. They just have yet to be designed, quite frankly. Will they be of a family? Yes. I can't say that it would be the exact same design, but in terms of material and finish and sort of the nature of it, yes, they'd all be of a family.
Okay. Those are my questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson. Any questions down this way?
Sure, thank you, Vice Chair. 6, first for staff, Ms. Kennedy, in the structure of merit report by Ms. Hernandez, were there any recommendations, or is it impacted in any way? I know it's not your role to interpret, but having not read that document, I'm curious about it.
We can actually pull it up for you, but it describes, the actual building and the criteria. And there's a couple of other buildings on site as well, but they are not structures of merit, just that one.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't see any real way it'd be impacted, so thank you for clarifying that. And Mr. Greer, could you go to your photograph number 4, which I got confused there, excuse me, but it seemed you were talking about a building that was going to be demolished. No, photograph number 4. It was a large brown wooden building. No, not that one.
One more down.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the front of the
The
cottage.
next one, see, that one is photo 3. No, I am confused, aren't I? No, it was a large brown wooden building.
Board Member Whalen, sorry to interrupt. I know what you're
Please,
referring to. Just
take over.
a moment here. That's right. In the other set of photos, thank you. Here we go. So
There it is, photo 4.
you were right all along, and you're correct entirely. This the structure is proposed to be demolished as part of the primary hotel at 302 West Montecito.
Yeah, so it's not even on the site, and
It's
it's
across
one
the
of
street
those
on the
3, one of the 3. Thank you.
All right, Mr. New?
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Black?
I don't have any questions either. Thanks.
Okay, I don't have any questions. Well, it's just the aspect of the cart before the horse. The main hotel is, could be, we could be severely concerned about its mass, and would they consider putting more units on this adjacent one to relieve the mass from this second, but we won't go there. All right, so.
What else we aren't going to do?
So is, any comments? Mr. Whelan, you go first.
Sure, I think this is a fine design. I think it's ready to make compatibility findings. I especially appreciate the lush landscaping of Mr. Maphis. I have some reservations that the lowered patio wall might provide an entry and that some spikier, more resistive plants barricade that, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Good suggestion.
Mr. New?
I would say the same thing. I'm pleased with the, where you've taken this and supportive.
Mr. Black?
I would agree. I think it's quite charming.
Ms. Anderson, anything else?
Yeah, I'd be curious if the stormwater plan will allow you to have the gravel next to the wall, but, so I'll be curious about that, and I agree with the spiky plants, and I think that it's ready for, well, compatibility findings preliminarily.
Yes, I have nothing further to add, so would anybody like to make a motion that would include compatibility findings and I would say one comment. I don't see any relationship, or I see a lot of disconnect between the structure of merit and this project. I don't see how this affects the structure of merit at all. So I think we'll feel comfortable when it comes to that bullet item on the compatibility findings, that we can hurdle that one.
I'm willing to make a motion, but a question for staff. It appears on our agenda as a concept review. So what would our motion be, to just make compatibility findings and that it would return to what the staff hearing officer, or please sketch out the path for us?
Yes, so a motion to continue to the staff hearing officer and making the findings, because that's what you're sending off to the staff hearing officer, saying that this project is compatible with all those items. So it's important for that to be moved forward.
With that sage advice, I'm ready to make a motion that the board finds this project acceptable, and that it continue with the staff hearing officer with the findings. And they'll be up in a minute. Here they are. Number one, it is consistent with design guidelines. It is compatible with the architecture character of the city and that neighborhood. Its appropriate size, mass, bulk, height, and scale are reflected in the design. It is sensitive to the adjacent landmark and historic resources in that it has no impact on them. It does not obscure public views of the ocean or the mountains, and it has an appropriate use of open space and landscaping.
Do you want to mention spiky plants?
I'll
Or
leave
just
that up to the discretion of the spikers.
I think that's appropriate, so.
All right, then.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
I could even say agave americanus to really make the point.
That's a nasty one.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
Perfect. I'll go ahead and take the roll call vote. Vice Chair Six?
Yes.
Board Member Anderson?
Yes.
Board Member Black?
Yes.
Board Member Noon?
Yes.
Board Member Whalen?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good job.
With that, we can, that's the end of our business today, so we can end the Architects Board of Review for February 6th.